Okay. Well, let's do it, guys. We're gonna bring to,
Need a second.
oh, sorry,
Not ready yet, girl.
both super close.
That's okay, except for shoes and
Hand grenades.
hand grenades.
Yeah, I was searching for it, so.
I have a third one, but I won't say it in public.
All right. Okay, we will bring the March 18th special meeting to order. Are there any staff or trustee additions or deletions to the agenda or the consent agenda?
Staff has no additions or deletions to either, Mr. Chairman.
All right. I'll move forward to adoption of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. I'll move on to public comments. Mr. Lilker.
Not one good man.
No, all right. Deborah Griffin, Debbie Griffin, sorry.
I'll respond to either. I need to say anything to introduce myself or.
I just preferred if you would.
All right, Debbie Griffin, resident across the lake and also local business owner, doctor of audiology. So I don't want to reiterate everything that was said because of the 3-minute rule at the meeting the other day. But again, I'm going to bring up the outside area of what's proposed from Meridian. I haven't seen anything in the plans and the contract that addresses the fencing and what will be needed by law. So I'm real curious about that. I will say again, after reviewing today's meeting agenda, as a taxpayer, lifelong resident of Lake City, Florida, I strongly disapprove of gifting a piece of taxpayer property to anybody. Gifting, and that's in the verbiage of 2 of the things you're gonna read tonight. Dale, I had a question for you. You mentioned about there being a legislative bill in place to help Meridian. And I'd like the number of that bill because the only thing I found was Bill 330, which was approved in 2024, that only addresses hospitals, and there's only 4 hospitals, and Meridian won't be a hospital.
Yeah, this is a funding bill for Meridian. It was filed by Representative Brannon. And I don't know the number, Debbie, but I can get it for you. Would y'all happen to know?
I don't, I can look on the site, it's on the list of appropriations.
It's a legislative appropriation.
Yeah.
It's not a bill, yeah.
It's a legislation.
I would like that number because I'd like to read it.
Okay.
And then also mentioned in that meeting the other day for the disagreement between you guys and the city council. Yeah, well, you mentioned that the thing's already been approved, it's unanimous, it's a done deal. Well, it is in writing only in what you guys have approved. And the appropriate process to rescind that is pretty easy. All you have to do is rescind the approval. So from citizen complaints, from all the issues that have been brought up and will continue to be brought up, why we don't want Meridian to be in this particular location. I want them to be here, but not in this particular location. It's an easy thing to do, just to rescind the approval. Nothing's been signed yet. By either, no formal signed contract on either party's side that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that's correct. I don't think anybody's signed the actual.
Yeah, so all you have to do
Agreement.
is make a motion to rescind and vote on it. And it's a done deal. So I don't think that's above your pay grade. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Ludley?
I'd like to save until the topic comes up.
All right, we've exhausted any of those public comments unless there's someone else got a public comment, Bill? Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on to approve the consent agenda. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the agenda approved. We're gonna move on to our first unfinished business. Let's see, discussion and possible action of the CHNA assessment update on interest from adjoining counties to participate. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be an update tonight. First of all, I was directed to contact adjoining counties to see if they were interested in participating in a community health needs assessment. The reason adjoining counties were asked to see if they wanted to participate is the demographics may possibly change if other counties are included. For example, on suggestions for siting facilities and et cetera. I have heard back from 2 counties, but I have not heard back from the remainder. So I think I'm gonna need to reach out a second time to those that haven't responded, just to see what their thoughts are. But, I wanted you to know that we have in fact did as was asked. And I will follow up with those that have not yet responded, just to make sure we get them to say something, yes or no. So not asking for any action to be taken, but I will answer any questions you may have.
The 2 counties.
Baker and Swanee.
Any thoughts from the board? Okay. Oh, all right. Oh wait, before I go forward, are there any public comments on this? I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. Sorry, I've been doing this all day. All right. Now, are there any thoughts from the board? No? Okay. We'll move on to our next item for discussion and possible action. Let's see, to declare a portion of the Columbia County parcel number, as you see it written there, I'll remember the 11789, that former maintenance building. Mr. Williams?
Yeah, thank you again,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. I was directed to inventory the remaining parcels of land owned by the authority which had not yet been declared surplus. To the best of my knowledge, there are 4 parcels that are left. So those are represented by the 1 through 4, or at least the 1, 3, and 4 that you see on your agenda. One of those parcels is the parcel that we were under consideration to, we were considering leasing to Columbia EMS. That would be the metal building on the northeast corner of the campus. Now, we'll come back and talk about this, but Meridian has asked that that be included in the dedication to them. 2 other parcels, and I'm sorry, I don't have a big map to show you this. They exist just to the south of that metal building, but they are to the east of the property line. They're very small lots. I think they were picked up for tax deeds because they had joined the property some years ago, but they're very small lots. They are shown on this map behind you, but obviously that's not real legible. But I think most of you are aware of those 2 small lots. My understanding is a local citizen has indicated in the past that they might be interested in one of those lots. It seems like that was mentioned in one of our meetings. So we have the metal building and the land that it sits on. We have these 2 small lots. And then there's an 11-acre lot, which is completely off of the map up here. It would be the further eastern lot that we own. It goes almost over to, I can't think of the name of the street. but it
Gordon?
accesses off of Lake Drive. It's 11.2 acres. It has never been declared surplus. And I know that there is both private and public interest in that lot, at least from what's been expressed to me. So what you're being tasked with doing tonight, or you're being asked to do tonight, is to determine whether you wish to declare these parcels as surplus, and if so, how do you wish to dispose of them? And there's a number of options related to the disposal, and we can discuss those if you like.
So,
And it's
yeah, I was gonna say, before I open it up for discussion, it's almost like we hit all four there, Dale, just so I'm
We did,
clear.
we covered
So-
it for.
Let's do all the, instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4 individually, if there's any public comments on it, can we hit all four? Is everybody good with that? No, we gotta do one at a time? Fair enough. Well, let's hit number one. The declare portion of Columbia County parcels
Maintenance
11,789, which is number one.
maintenance building.
Yeah, that's what it is? Yeah. Let's do that one first. So public comments on the maintenance building. Mr. Lilker. Take a chance.
Take a chance. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The reason I asked these to be separate, because I don't know which number goes to which parcel.
Oh,
And being, this is apparently the religious time of the year with Ramadan and Passover and Easter all coming up. This meridian is starting to remind me of the Ten Commandments and the plagues that happened in Egypt before Moses opened up the Red Sea. It was every day, it was another plague. Remember, the vermin, and the rats, and then it ended up with the firstborn. Every time we come here, it seems Meridian wants another piece of property. This started out where they got the hospital. Now, they're getting the parking lots, apparently, from the Masons, or from us. And now, they want this. Well, I say they never wanted this in the first place. It's really time to stop. I'm a taxpayer in this community, besides publishing the Columbia County Observer. And I think it's gotta stop. If you wanna give them the building, AKA the hospital, and we'll deal with that when we get to that part. Nobody can stop you from doing that. But clearly, this was never part of the bargain. And I think if somebody wants this building, they should have a shot to buy it. Just like Meridian would have a chance to buy it. Probably the money that they would use to buy it would be better spent on behavioral care than buying an extra steel building. That's all I have. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lilker. Any other comments on number one there? Public comment? For the room? Yes, ma'am.
I just reiterate what I said before, sell it. If you want to get rid of it, issue a surplus and sell it. So,
Thank you. All right, any further public comment on item number one there? Okay. Thoughts from the board?
Chair,
Yes, sir, Mr. Bill.
just got a question.
Uh-huh.
Bill, this 11,795 southernmost metal building, there's the two lots that I think are on number 3.
They are.
What, this 11,795, is that somebody else's? Is the hospital authority?
I can't see from here.
There's 3.
Oh, yeah, that little one is privately owned. Yeah, there were 2 of the 3 small parcels. I think that become available because of taxes. They picked them up through tax deeds, but I don't really recall, but they are 2 of the 3 owned by the authority.
So I guess the only thing we're really discussing here is, are we gonna do that one surplus? Right, is that a correct statement? If we're just.
Correct. Item 1 is simply for you to decide whether to declare that surplus or not. And because it is part of a larger parcel, the way it was written is declare a portion of Columbia County parcel because everything else has already been declared.
Right.
When the properties are surveyed, all of that will be clarified.
Gotcha.
Here, I'll make a motion to declare parcel number 00-00-00-11789 as surplus.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second before we do it. Do any thoughts?
Yes. Until we decide exactly what we're gonna do, why are we declaring things surplus? I disagree with it.
Okay.
You don't know what you're gonna do. So let's just throw it up in the air and see what comes down. Is that what you're doing? I think we should keep in mind that these might be surplus. But until we actually make a decision about something, why are we getting rid of them? We may decide we need them for something.
I think if we decided that, we would be able to just keep it. I don't think labeling it a surplus forces us to get rid of it.
No, but it makes it tempting. I think we should keep it in mind, don't get me wrong, that this could come up for a vote at another meeting. But until we actually make some decisions, why are we getting rid of it?
Right, technically, aren't we just calling it surplus? And we haven't gotten rid of it if it's just surplus. And I understand what you're saying it is tempting.
And that's the reason I say not to do
Yeah.
anything until we have made some decisions.
I don't think we can make a decision until we declare it surplus either.
Ah,
True.
but if we keep this in mind and we decide that we want to make it surplus, in one meeting, we can make it surplus and vote to do whatever we're going to do with it.
No.
And in the meantime, there's no temptation until we decide what we're going to do with everything else.
Thoughts, Mr. Kennedy?
Mr. Chairman, question for Mr. Williams. Correct me if I'm wrong, just because we declare it surplus now, we can come back later and add it back to our inventory. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
Thank you.
Nothing requires you to act on it, even if you declare it surplus.
It eliminates the step of having to do it at this meeting again. Whereas if the next meeting, if we decide we have a use for it, whether it be back to our use or to someone else's use, then it's already been declared surplus. We feel like we have a need for our use, then we can just make a motion that we need to put back in the inventory lot number 11789 and use it for XYZ.
Well,
I see your point, and I'm just trying to,
yeah, but you've still got the temptation there.
Or if
somebody comes up and,
we have a lot of temptations in life, but we ignore them, so.
Well, but if I may, just to make sure
Please.
everybody understands, and to Miss Lori's point, there are requests here for 4 parcels. You're being asked to declare them as surplus if you want to. The second part of that same question is, now that you've declared them, what do you want to do? So if you don't include them as part of the transfer, if you don't want to sell them, if you want to keep them in inventory, whatever it is you decide to do, that's what will happen to these lots, at least for the immediate future. But they're all really 2-part questions. Do you want to declare it surplus? And if you do, what do you want to do with it at this time, if anything?
Any immediate use come to mind for it?
No,
No.
but all kinds of uses will be proposed to us if we declare it surplus.
Wouldn't that be a good thing? That's where my mind is
Not-
going.
Not until we make the decisions on the other things.
Fair enough.
You take one step at a time.
Fair enough. Well, any further discussion, any further comments? There's a motion and a second.
Roll call, please.
Gonna do a roll call vote, all right. There's a motion and a second to declare parcel number 000011789000 surplus. I'll do a roll call vote. Ms. Chanson,
No,
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Peter.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, Mr. Williams, you've already covered this, I believe, transferring the second, number two there, transfer the gift, to number one above to Meridian Healthcare. So, to dispense with that, you've already given us an overview, but I'm gonna open that up to public comment at this time. And I believe Mr. Lilker has something to say on this item number two.
Which one is that now?
This was the transfer by gift of property described in the number one above, the one we just declared surplus to Meridian and or authorized the sale of the property.
But I already said what I had to say, thank you.
Just check. One of those things, sure. Miss Lemley, I'm checking for you. Always, I go to my usuals. Any other public comments on this? No, okay. Thoughts on from the board? The Meridian, do we know if Meridian's asked for this property? You may have said
Meridian
that.
did ask, they did state that they would be interested in receiving this property.
Okay,
Um. I don't remember, did y'all do that in writing?
Yes. we
I
have.
thought you did. I thought you did, yeah.
any particular use for it or just an addition to the campus or any?
Well, in addition to the campus, I think this particular parcel is, appears from the appraiser site to be partially on the other parcel that was already included. So I think that's the issue there. That it occupies a piece of the parcel we've already discussed and agreed upon.
And that is correct. And so what we stated earlier, if for some reason it's not transferred to Meridian, if you choose to do other things with it, it will be carved out of that parent tract by separate legal. And it will carry its own conveyance separate from.
Huh. I'm embarrassed to say now I want to see the survey and see where this thing falls. I can understand it a little better. No, I'm pulling up on my phone. That's where we're going.
Okay, you're running.
I was gonna say, no, I'm just gonna pull up the property appraiser's map now.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Just to kind of touch on comments made earlier, I think originally whenever Meridian asked for the hospital building,
Mm-hmm.
parking lot was part of it. We ended up having to go through quite a few loopholes to get that to be allowed to be part of it. If you've driven by and seen this building, it looks like it's part of that property. It's a maintenance building that was used by the hospital.
Certainly looks like it. And that's what I'm looking at it.
A
Yeah.
bunch of small little parcels that make up big lots and big areas. So to me, it makes sense to go with the hospital. Whoever got the hospital, the maintenance building, it'd be great to have maintenance equipment kept in that building for whoever's occupying the hospital. To me, it makes sense for it to go with Meridian. Understand other commenters and Meridian wants to pay for it, that'd be great too, but I would rather them spend the money on mental health services than buying a building if we're gonna give them another building.
Mhm.
And I feel like we're at the point where we're trying to wrap up the hospital authority. So selling the building, I don't know. You know, we could use that money for initial care and that would be great too. So I'm game either way, but to me, it makes sense for the building to go with the end user of the hospital building.
Okay, off the top of your head, when the survey was done, did the survey outline this parcel as it's?
No, that, when the survey is done, that parcel will end up being whatever we tell them to make it, because it is part of a parent tract, a big tract, so you're gonna have to carve it out.
Okay,
But to me, the logical way to carve it out is there's a huge utility easement just to the west of that building.
right,
It's where the underground of FP&L comes in off of Leon Street. And if you've noticed, those transformers, which are on the east side of the hospital,
yes,
are fed by that underground. So it would only make sense that the easement fall between the easement and the building. I mean, the property line. Now, if it's gonna remain with Meridian, we'll just, when we get the meets and bounds, it'll just be included.
I know. Any additional thoughts, Ms. Chancey, as I'm going through? I can see you also on the tip of your tongue.
I can understand why that would be attached to the hospital.
That's kind of where I'm at. Well. Ms. Kennedy, you got any thoughts?
No.
Mr. Bullard? No? Well. Do we want to entertain a motion to transfer this, or do we, Meridian's interest, are you all, out of curiosity, you all interested in it for, I'm assuming, maintenance?
Mhm.
That sort of thing?
Originally, I believe we thought it was included just because of the way the property was drawn
Gotcha.
and only later realized that. It was
There you have it. All right. Well. I can entertain a motion.
I don't like the way this is written.
Okay, Stan?
I would say that I would make a motion that this property go with the property of the hospital whenever it is transferred.
Oh, okay. I
To be
see.
included in the existing contract, is that?
No, not existing contract, nothing like that.
I see what you're saying. To
Just that,
include with the hospital grounds.
yeah. That only makes sense.
Yeah.
The way this is here, if we're gonna do it to Meridian right now, I don't think so.
Right. You're saying it needs to transfer once the grounds of the hospital transfer.
Right, wherever the hospital
This
goes,
this
goes.
Okay,
So I think Miss Laurie is simply saying that it will remain as part of 11-789.
right.
And wherever 11-789 may be transferred in the future, it goes with it.
Yeah,
I can appreciate that very much. I do appreciate that.
I'll second that.
Okay, was that a motion? Just to be
Yes.
clear, that was a motion? Okay. So unless there's further discussion, any thoughts on that? I've got a motion and a second to transfer the maintenance building and area as it's drawn on the, I'm not trying to make it up, but as it's shown on the property appraiser's website to transfer with the hospital whence and therefore it moves. Is that fair statement? Did I get that right? Tom?
that sounds right.
I'm trying to make sure I understand. It's hard for me to repeat it. So there's a motion and a second.
Roll call.
Let's do a roll call vote. All, Ms. Chancey,
Yes,
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Bullard.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Sorry, I had to restate that. It took me a minute. Number 3, transfer by gift parcels 11,793, or we're declaring that as surplus. To Meridian and or authorize the sale of the property. And that's number 3 there. Those are those 2 parcels, just so I'm clear on it. It's the 2. These minor ones.
Not the bottom one, but
The top 2 parcels, okay.
Point that
Yeah,
out.
Before we do that, I'm gonna,
these two that are
the
highlighted.
top 2 above the maintenance building. Right, so before we do any public comments on this,
Will technically be below the main building, I think.
okay,
Yes, one everything.
Ms. Lindley.
Those 2 parcels, I was there when Mr. Berry bought them at a tax certificate sale. They're basically 2 useless properties, but Jack, Dale said somebody may be interested in them.
It was brought up at one of the meetings. I thought, please forgive me if I'm wrong, I thought somebody said Lawrence Rentz was interested in one of them.
Well, that was me and Mr. Rentz was interested in the building of the property directly behind the back of the maintenance building here, that vacant lot
Okay,
that has already been,
okay, so I had the wrong parcel.
yes, sir.
Okay. Nobody was interested.
I think they should be put up for sale, see if we can get a few bucks for them. It was a waste to spend authority money on it, but I guess Jack thought he had other plans for those. So I think they should just be put up for sale. They're probably wet like the rest of that property behind them.
Thank you, Ms. Lindley. Any other public comments? Mr. Lilker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would repeat what Ms. Lemley said. We also object to this. This started out with Don Kennedy. Your attorney knows that this process is wrong. Just like these first 2 actions, nobody knew what you were voting on until you voted on it. And the law is that the public has the right to comment on a proposition before the board. The proposition isn't made until you make a motion. That's plain common sense. Now, the way the law is written, you know, Mr. Cannon, I don't know if he's playing under the table kid with Mr. Kennedy, but the way the law is written, that if you get sued over this, you don't have to do it over. You just have to pay the fees and the attorney's fees. But you never have to redo it, like in a public records case or a sunshine law case. We have to do it over to get it right. You never have to get it right. You just have to be shown that you've done it wrong. Now, I'll tell you this, Mr. Kennan knows this because when he was the attorney, and I'm sure you all understand all the problems that are now going on in Lake City, but when he was the attorney in Lake City, he correctly analyzed the situation and had the city council, which it still continues to do now, not comment on anything unless it's public comments until a motion is made. Because it is only at that time that the public knows what's being voted on. That's the proposition. And why Mr. Kennedy has stood steadfast in this is something totally that's beyond me. Being he knows a little bit about the law, I suppose, being he worked in the public defenders for 40 years or whatever it was, 38 years, a lot of years, decades and decades and decades. I'm just saying I object to this. This can be changed at any time. But it's not fair to the public, and it's not fair to you guys. Now that you know what the facts are. And the facts are, this is passed in 2013, it was SB 50 back in those days. And it's been refined over the years that the public has the right to vote on a proposition that's before the board. So if any of these things come up, and you folks decide not to act on it tonight, the public has no reason to comment. So I would just ask you to consider that, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Leffler, thank you. Any further public comment on these, two lots?
So on number three, it's a little bit loaded, so this kind of addresses what you said earlier about this one was a previously declared surplus piece of property. My feeling on this one is that if you're gonna move forward on this, that you do it with the verbiage that Lori said about, and then still include and or authorize the sale of the property.
Thank you. Any, further public discussions or comments on this? Discussion from the board. Yeah.
Fencing and everything around this area. How is that? What is that like? Does it go behind, between the maintenance building and these two lots?
You can't, because of growth and organics and whatever, you can't access these two lots from the campus.
So whether it be overgrowth or fence or both, these two lots are not part of the rest of the campus or the maintenance.
No, and they're different parcels entirely.
But I understand different parcels, but as far as the grounds, that's not.
Yeah, these would be, if you were to look at the easternmost fence, these would be outside the fence.
That's.
Is there any utility to them? Can they be turned into a?
The best I could tell, and it's been a while since I went over and looked at them. I mean, it's been years, but I don't even know about access.
They're landlocked.
I couldn't really find any legal access.
Mhm.
So if they were to be utilized for something, it would almost be necessary that you access them through the parking lot.
But we don't own the third small one,
We do not.
0.084 acres. Huh.
Or the one to the east of it.
We do not.
Hang on, hang on, right there.
It'd be a good helicopter landing pad.
That's a good one.
Only way.
It would not.
So consider the wetland.
Wetland determinations are based on vegetation, and I just wouldn't want, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. But I do believe in the suggestion that was made in that keeping up with the very trend you did earlier, it would seem that these lots need to go with the transfer of the property whenever or whoever that may be, just as you did previously. So I don't think you're gonna be able to carve these out and do anything separate with them at all.
I'll second that.
He can't make the motion. You gotta
I'm
make
sorry.
it. You make. the
But while I
motion.
agree, yes. That's because they're landlocked and yeah, they could transfer with it, but I would think too, just anybody's use. I don't necessarily know that you'd want a private lot just floating out there for any person to get a hold of and do with what they will. That close to the campus. So it has been previously declared surplus. So.
And
Go ahead.
has Meridian expressed interest in these two lots?
They have not, and I'm not even sure they knew they existed because they were not part of that parent parcel.
Yeah.
Are they accessible from the maintenance building, or being adjacent?
They could be, but again, these two lots, if they're held by somebody other than the owner of that a 11789 parcel, you're gonna have to more than likely give them a, way of convenience and necessity, an easement or something to access them. So pretty soon you could have a private interest wanting to enter through a public facility. That won't work.
Sure.
Mr. Beal,
I'd make a motion that the two parcels listed in number 3 that have previously been declared surplus transfer with parcel 11789. Whatever time that is, whoever that goes to.
all right.
I'll second it.
So I have a motion and a second, to transfer the parcel 11793 along with 11789.
11
Is it, or 11?
and 11794 with.
Oh, sorry, 11793 and 11794 with 11789, to whomever takes control of the campus at that time. So a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Yes.
Ms. Chancey, Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Bullard,
Yes.
Mr. Beal.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Number 4. Okay, this one's tougher. I want to call this the 11.2 acres easternmost swamp property. I'm familiar with this one. That Mr. Williams described. We want to declare this one as surplus. Or authorize the property to be sold. So I'll do public comment on this one first. Any public comment? I'm out here. Yes, ma'am.
If this parcel can be sold, sell it. And this doesn't include the helicopter pad, does it?
No,
No, it's
It's the swampy area.
the swampy one, but it's this
That's
is.
that very one is Highway 3.
I don't even think this one was in the highway plan.
Yeah.
This one's east of the highway. Wait, no, it's not. The east of the highway, of the
No, he's got the
aforementioned highway.
East of the highway he wanted to have built,
Yes,
where the state spent $410,000 to do a study. And if it had been developable property, it would have been not, I guess, taken into consideration 50 years ago when I went back and looked at it. Because all the developers then says it was just too wet to do anything with. But if somebody wants to buy it now, let them buy it.
any further public comment? On the easternmost parcel? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Mr. Frank.
as you will learn later in the meeting, I met Friday with the city manager, Mr. Rosenthal. Mr. Rosenthal will be present at your April meeting to make a request on behalf of the city for certain vacant lots. I do know from the conversation I had with him, the city is interested in this parcel as well as those western parcels that they previously had and they were returned under the reverter. So I just want you to know that as of Friday, he did indicate they would be interested in that parcel.
The swamp.
Sir?
Swamp, that one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've been told that the city may have an interest in it and developing it as a wind usable type park, turn it into a nature area with the understanding that there's gonna be times of the year that the property is going to flood and probably nothing to do about that. But that the city had or was considering turning it into some sort of nature area that when it is flooded, it would just be closed to the public. When it was not flooded, it'd be open to the public.
Fair enough. Comments from the board?
I think if anybody had any interest, I think they should be able to buy it if they wanted to. I think we should put that size of piece of property. They wanna buy it for whatever reason, if they wanna buy some swamp land, let's sell it to them.
I'm with you. I'd like to see it sold.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kennedy,
if I can ask Mr. Kennan and Mr. Williams, along the lines of what Mr. Bullard said, I kind of agree. What would we have to do to get an appraisal on that particular parcel as well as these other two parcels that, or three parcels that we just declared surplus, but we're gonna hold on to them until we see what happens with the hospital? We just get it. I mean, off the top of your head, what would you think? Ballpark me between 50,000 and 100,000 just to get an appraisal on those lots, or between 5,000, 10,000?
No, you're probably talking on the two smaller ones, number 1 and number 3. Those two would be probably $750,000 range for each. And I would say about the same money for the 11.2 acres.
Would we have to ask for bids, Mr. Williams, from the different appraisers? Or can that be a sole
Well,
purchase type deal, or do you know?
at those values, you would not have to go and get bids. You would have to get quotes.
From 2 or 3?
But in this case, because you have already engaged the services of an appraiser who did the parking lot,
Good point.
they already have a certain amount of data pertaining to this property. I think that is justification to sole source it to them, subject to a review of their proposed charges. But all you're going to need is a limited summary appraisal report. You're not going to need a full appraisal. You just want to determine value.
Yes, sir.
I would suggest you just do a limited summary appraisal report. You don't need a document you're going to end up in court with. You just need a value.
Well, Mr. Chairman, along the lines of what Mr. Bullard said, I'd like to see that myself. But I'd like to hear the other comments from my fellow board members.
Appreciate it.
yeah, Mr. Bill.
I don't disagree with Mr. Kennedy, except for paying for an appraisal or whatever Mr. Williams called it on the other 3 lots, simply because we've already said they're gonna go with 11,789, so I don't think we should pay for something to get a value on something that's gonna go with that other parcel. The 11.3 acre, 11.2 acres, I agree with that, but the other 3 parcels, I don't know that we should pay to get the value on it, that's gonna go with the.
And I agree with your thoughts on that. But I guess for my own mind, I just would like to see what they're worth. And as a taxpayer, would like to know what they're worth. I mean, I know we have an idea, we discussed it at great length regarding the value of the hospital. And I think we came up with a figure of about $3 to $5 million to have it torn down versus about 15 to 20 million to have it renovated. And I just would like to know, are they worth $50 or $5,000, or that's just my own curiosity, I guess. See what you get to look forward to when you get older.
I definitely want to know what the swamp's worth on a personal level. But yeah, I don't know. I'm up in the air on the other 3. I'm curious, like you, wouldn't mind knowing. But I think regardless, those would still, I don't know that it would change my mind, knowing what they're worth, I'd still want them to convey.
And those other 3 would, in my opinion, be an easy appraisal.
Yeah. As an ex-appraiser, I would agree. That would be a slick assignment. You could do one after the other. Well, any further thoughts? Is there a motion that I missed? No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'd like to hear the thoughts. I've heard.
I'll make a motion to declare parcel listed in number 4, consisting of 11.2 acres unidentified as number 2 on the attached map as surplus property, and authorize an appraisal on said parcel.
Have a motion on the floor to, let's see, I'm trying to restate it. That's tough. Motion on the floor to authorize parcel number 2, we'll call it short, surplus, or make, declare it surplus and authorize an appraisal of the property. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Do a, to take parcel number 2.
Known about.
So we're gonna declare it surplus. We'll do a roll call vote on item number 4. Ms. Chancey,
No,
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Bullard,
Yes.
Mr. Beal.
Yes.
So the motion passes to declare parcel number 2 surplus and to engage an appraisal with that, on that parcel.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, point of clarification,
Yes, sir.
this is a limited summary appraisal report, not a full-blown appraisal. We're good with that?
That was my understanding.
Okay, and it's only the 11.2 acre parcel. Have you decided not to get an appraisal on the other 3 parcels?
I feel like Mr. Beal was cutting that one apart. And we were gonna wait for a second motion
Oh,
on those.
okay.
What?
I was thinking of that, sorry.
But the motion is only right now is.
It's just
Only the
Just on that,
11.2,
right, yes,
right?
sir.
But that was my continuing thought. I thought that's what he was doing.
But before we leave that,
Yes, yes. So I am curious as well on that, for what it's worth.
I'm not against it.
No, I'm with
Being
you.
fair, I just
I'm curious too.
don't see it. I'm not-
You're gonna give it, if you're gonna give it.
Give it away.
Why you gonna give it away?
Why, it's,
as just my own mental
Yeah.
satisfaction to know that I gave $50 away, or,
That's the ex-appraiser.
I mean, it's like, yeah.
Look at it and give me the.
you could request a BPO. You get it, could we do that? We get a broker.
I know what I gave away in the hospital.
I mean.
If you notice, I didn't make a motion.
I did notice. Thoughts from the board, y'all think we've exhausted this one?
Exactly.
All right. All right, moving on to unfinished business.
Uh,
Be
So,
second.
so we're not doing,
We are not, no, sir.
okay, we're
No,
moving.
Just number 2, yes, sir. I'm gonna go to open up this one, the last one, discussion and possible action, Mr. Ken for the city of Lake City zoning determination. Let you take that one away. for me.
Yeah, as you're aware, last Wednesday, we had the 164 meeting between the authority and the city of Lake City.
Yes,
And there was not a finalized resolution at the end of that meeting. It is my understanding where it stands now is that the city would like to have some enforcement ability as to what Meridian can and can't do with the building. And the update I got this morning is that the city's zoning attorney Sid Anspacher is working with David Evans, who is the Meridian attorney, to try to reach a resolution that would satisfy both the city and Meridian without involving our agreement that we already have ironed out with Meridian. And I was informed this morning by Meridian's attorney that they are making progress and hopefully would know, yes, they can cut it, we'll have a deal, or no, they won't by the end of this month. They are in the drafting stage. They've had several discussions at and subsequent to the 164 meeting. So my recommendation is to let those two entities see if they can work something out by the end of March. And if Meridian is satisfied with the city's position and is willing to accept whatever the city proposes, then I'm assuming that's reciprocal. The city would be in agreement with that, and it would allow them Meridian the use of the building as contemplated. And then that would allow us, if they do reach an agreement for Meridian, then to execute our agreement.
Public comments on this item? Ms. Lumley?
No.
It's the one that you circled. Is there? I mean, I call on you every time, but it's just shocking. Sorry. Mr. Lilker, you, sir, I felt like, okay, all right. Any other public comments on the city zoning? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question more than anything, because, are we talking about the security portion of what was discussed at that meeting, or the zoning?
My understanding is they're discussing the security issue and the fencing issue along with to be included in that resolution. I know, I think speaking, I don't want to put words in Meridian's, but as far as fencing, that generally it would be an opaque fence where patients can't see out and citizens can't see in. Or whether that, I think it's an ACA requirement that establishes heights and structures and how the fence is built. No outside ingress, egress, all has to be through the building. But that it would be obscured from both inside and outside for whatever facilities that patients would be allowed to go outside the building. But that and the security measures, what Meridian's willing to provide to help offset the city's concerns expressed at the meeting are being discussed.
Okay, still nothing on the zoning.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Just got one question.
I do.
So the fence height, that's an ACA requirement. Is that what we're saying? Sorry. So
That's
the fence
my
height,
under-
that's an ACA requirement?
It's in a Florida administrative code. I think that's what you were
Yeah.
reading from, yeah. That outlines the facility standards and the requirements.
It's like the fence you got down in Gainesville.
Yeah, and we actually. I know it's your public. I don't want to.
Yeah,
Go for it.
it's like-
Extra minutes.
Public comments, public
Sorry, I
comments.
didn't want to use your time, but we actually provided that guideline and then pictures of our current fencing that we have in our two other locations as examples.
Thank you very much.
Any further public comments? Okay. Thoughts from the board? Go for it.
Well, to tell you how disappointed I am regarding the city of Lake City's involvement in our recent conflict assessment hearing. The singular issue at hand, which was the zoning issue, was not discussed at all. And we don't have any other dispute with the city besides their interpretation of the zoning. They talked about how the intended use wouldn't fit in the current landscape, even though the hospital successfully operated in the exact location for many, many years. Again, not a zoning issue. The mention of the city's interest in land that the hospital authority owns, to me, raises some very serious concerns. It certainly feels like quid pro quo. And I think that we should be extremely careful moving forward. And personally, I would hope that our staff, I hope that we could get consensus to ask our staff not to discuss any land swaps with the city of Lake City until this zoning issue is over, simply because I think the community could see that in a bad light, that to me, it looks like quid pro quo. Well, we think there's this issue, but we really want these lots.
Yeah.
So I think that we should not have any further discussions about the city's desires for any hospital authority owned land at all with the city administration until this issue is, the singular zoning issue is resolved. The fact that the city wants to get involved in the contract that we have with Meridian is somewhat comical to me, simply because I own a house in the city limits. If I decide to sell that house, are they gonna be involved and tell me who I can sell it to? That whoever buys that house, are they gonna interview them to see how many times they intend on calling law enforcement or the fire department? Certainly hope not. I hope I don't have to deal with that in the future whenever I decide to sell the property that I own in the city limits. Something else that nobody else is talking about, and I'm sure this would be unpopular, so I'll preface it by saying that I firmly believe the city of Lake City should do what they need to do when it concerns the women's club. However, I haven't heard anybody mention the women's club losing its legal non-conforming status. We spent $50,000 a month of taxpayer money to maintain that hospital building as a hospital. That's not abandonment, not in my definition. The fact that nobody's been allowed into the women's club certainly fits abandonment more than our case. The women's club, the land that it sits on, happens to be zoned residential single family. Can it be used as a clubhouse? Why is that not being discussed? Again, or they come at me with pitchforks.
Yeah.
I think the city should do what they have to do
Yeah.
to the women's club.
Yeah.
But why is this different than the women's club? Garden club, whatever. I refer to it as women's club. We're my first unsuccessful marriage. Wedding reception.
Holds a dear place in your heart.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I like it. It's a nice place. It's a good venue. It didn't cost much. But again, what's the difference? I mean, the city wants to come after us because they don't like the idea of what we're putting in. I hope they don't do that. I hope that the police department doesn't say, I don't think you should sell your house to that person because it looks like they might need us more than the other neighbors. That's just asinine to me. That makes zero sense whatsoever. I truly understand the concern. But when you come down to what it boils down to, there's no difference. And me selling my house, are they gonna say that, well, you don't want the people that are buying your house. So we think you need to add this to the contract. Certainly hope not. Maybe this will set a precedent so they can. But again, I was very disappointed. Not in our staff and our representative, Mr. Kennedy, thank you. Tried to get on track and talk about the zoning issue at the conflict resolution meeting. So thank you. I want to make that clear. I think all our staff and representatives did well. But I don't think, as terrible as this is going to sound, I don't think it's the city's business what our contract says with Meridian. Also don't think we're not a legal non-conforming use. I also don't think that the women's club is not a legal non-conforming. I think that they are still a legal non-conforming use, even though it has not been entered in over 6 months. And so I think my recommendation, I'll wait to make a motion to hear my fellow board member comments, but I don't have much faith that this is gonna get resolved quickly. It hasn't so far. So I would hope that come April 1st, if Meridian's not comfortable with signing the contract that we have with them, then I think at that point, we need to move forward with asking for a declaratory judgment or whatever that would be from the court system. On April 1st. Maybe April 2nd, so. Well, that's it.
Good call.
I was encouraged by, Mr. Kennan saying by the end of the month, the, end of March, that this was going to be resolved. However, it was not going to be resolved as far as the zoning. And I'm in agreement with Mr. Bill. I think we need to put a timeline on this now. No. It's the attorneys that are sitting here, but it's taxpayers' money. We spent a lot of time and money on this effort, and we need to either resolve it or move on. And that's just where we need to be. We need to put a timeline on it with the city, and that's just my opinion.
I agree. Ms. Chansey,
I agree.
Mr. Kennedy.
First of all, I want to thank the board for drafting me to attend the meeting last Wednesday. I went in with the attitude that my mother always told me, and that was to be seen and not heard. And I did that. But I do want to thank Mr. Kennan, Mr. Arline, as well as Mr. Williams, who did an excellent job representing this board. I want to thank Ms. Cohen and her assistant for traveling up from Gainesville to be there. The other people in the room that were there to comment that made comments, I listened to that. But I will say this, Mr. Bill was present at the meeting and heard the same things that I did. And I think if everyone will go and read the editorial from the Lake City Reporter last Thursday, I think it was, or Friday, whatever day, it's spot on. It was a waste of time and it was a waste of taxpayers' money. Tremendously so. I don't like the fact, Mr. Bill, I agree with you, that the city has come in now and taken over this contract with Meridian and is micromanaging it. And I would advise Meridian not to do anything with the city. It's our contract that we have, our agreement. If the city has concerns, they should come to this board and state those concerns. Communication is a wonderful thing. And we have not heard from the city until the letter that was written on October the 24th, 2024. And then it's put nothing but another tremendous hurdle up. And Mr. Bullard and Mr. Bill, I will agree with you 10,000%. And Mr. Kennan and Mr. Arline, I would like to say, come April the 1st, that if they have not signed the letter that you two prepared for them to sign for Meridian to proceed, that on April the 1st, that before our next board meeting, that action is filed with the courts of the 3rd Judicial Circuit in and for Columbia County, period. And as far as Meridian goes, I would like to see the list of their concerns for security that they have with this contract, and let us too agree whether we want Meridian to have those. I understand that they're talking about some sort of fence that may have to go up because of federal, state guidelines, county, whatever, but I'd like to see that. I think that we have been transparent for the last 2+ years on this negotiation, and I would like to keep it that way. Right now, I feel blindsided because I haven't seen what the city is asking Meridian to do, and I disagree with that. period. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, go for it.
And I don't want to put Ms. Cohn on the spot, but it was brought up earlier in public comments. And I don't know if she has information that she could share or would be prepared to share right now about the fencing. I agree, it's none of the city's business, but I also feel blindsided that they're asking for this. But if Ms. Cohn is interested and willing to talk about it tonight, I would like to hear if
Yep.
the rest of the board's okay with it.
Why didn't they come and ask us to consider this with Mr. Kennan and Mr. Arline? Mr. Arline came in regarding the zoning issue, but with Mr. Kennan, as far as the actual contract that we've been working on for 2 years.
Let's go. Yeah. Yeah.
And before she does speak, I would like to comment additionally on what Mr. Beal has said. I don't think that we should entertain anything from the city regarding any interest that they have on any of this property until this is finalized. Period.
The city had asked us through our attorney, Mr. David Evans, as Todd mentioned, to provide information on the Florida Administrative Code, which some individuals read from at the last conflict resolution meeting regarding the outdoor recreation area that was a part of certain facilities like the crisis stabilization unit. So they asked us to provide where that administrative code was. So we sent that along. And in that code, there are certain pieces of information regarding what type of, like I said, outdoor recreation area you must provide in these types of facilities. So we sent that administrative code, and then in an effort to show what, it's not a fence around an entire building, it's an outdoor recreation area. But in an effort to show what that was, because I think some of the imagery was back to, will people be able to see out, barbed wire, those types of things. So in an effort to dispel those myths or get ahead of them, we sent pictures of a wooden fence, the cement fencing, the fencing that we have in our other crisis stabilization units. So we were asked to provide those 2 pieces of information in one request, which we sent forward. And I apologize because I was assuming that Mr. Kennan was also on those, which it doesn't sound like, so I can certainly get those to you forthcoming this evening. The other request we received was some information on what potential security would look like or how we would approach them. So we did also have a statement on that. I can send both of those pieces to all of you or Mr. Williams to get that to you, whatever you want.
Mr. Kenny.
Yeah, regarding this fencing, fenced in area, have you determined where that will be on the property?
No, not
Okay,
as of
all right,
yet.
okay.
And
Is there any other regulations, like if there are 2 patients in the yard during a certain period, that there must be 5 employees managing those 2 patients? Is there anything that's stated, written by code on
the
that?
administrative code
Yes.
dictates also what your staffing ratio must be.
Correct.
So basically, if you have 1 to, and I can pull it up, but if you have 1 to 10 beds, you must have this many nurses, this many mental health technicians. If you have 11 to 20 beds, you must have this many nurses, this many.
And I understand that point, but I'm talking about on the outside facility. If you've got 2 patients outside, is there supposed to be 5 employees, whether they be nurses or orderlies or doctors outside physically with the patients? Is there anything that's,
I don't recall
Okay.
seeing something to that level, but I'd certainly have to go back and review.
if you don't mind, if you could also get those to Mr. Kennan, because I'm sure that, never mind.
I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Cohn?
I think one of the questions that came up I would like to respond to was, again, just to reiterate, was whether people would be able to see in and out, and just to assure everyone that any area that's a part of the facility must also maintain privacy and the dignity of the patients we serve. So there would never be a circumstance where anyone outside could see into any outdoor area or any inside area, would be able to see individuals or interact with those individuals as they're receiving care and treatment.
Yes.
Just, so you have this fencing at the Gainesville facility, is that correct?
And
So-
in
so-
our Lake City campus. Mhm.
And I wanted to ask that because I don't recall, and I want to let the citizens here know that I legitimately, honestly take your concerns seriously, and I do. But I don't recall even seeing a fence, nothing that's stood out, like stay away from this area, there's barbed wire. I mean, whenever I visited and toured that facility, it's a beautiful grounds. It was very well kept. It was, I mean, there was nothing that made you think that, oh, I can't go over to that area. So I wanted to point that out because I don't recall even seeing
No,
fencing
the
there.
aesthetic of the fencing too would integrate well into the design of each facility and campus, so it is hopefully noticeable and goes.
We did a good job at it in Gainesville, because honestly, I don't recall seeing fencing.
That's how you can have a dog park next door and somebody didn't even notice.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, thank you so much.
I'd like to, before any motion is considered, I'd like to hear from Mr. Arline and, Mr. Kennan, concerning, my concern that, on April the 1st, which would be, according to my calendar, a Tuesday, which would be 2 weeks from today, that we proceed with, filing, here in the Columbia County in the 3rd Judicial Circuit, action, towards the city to resolve this zoning issue.
We could do that if that's what the authority board directs. I would, honestly, I would like to know what the city, whether the city and Meridian have worked out their problems on the overall issue,
I'm not concerned about that.
but you know,
But
that's your call,
Yeah, but
not our call.
that doesn't have anything to actually do with the zoning.
Well, if Meridian is satisfied to, the zoning issue raised, the entity with the real problem about the zoning is Meridian from a due diligence standpoint. And if Meridian is willing to go forward and execute the contract and, you know, finish the arrangement with the authority and not worry about the zoning problem, then it's not the authority's problem. They've taken the problem and they've taken the property, and with it, any zoning issue that may exist. And they may be able to work through it on their own between the city and Meridian, where there is no need to address those.
And I follow your line of thinking there, but through resolution through the courts, could we not have that resolved too, that issue, where it's not carried over down the road to Meridian, that being Meridian's problem?
Yes.
Okay, that's my point there. Yeah.
Yes.
Chair, I can just piggyback off that. I don't think it is Meridian's problem. I think it's our problem.
Yeah.
Because the city sent us the letter after they came to us and asked us for the building to use as the city hall and civic center, which is not residential single family. A quote from my phone conversation, the city administrator was, after our request was denied, I went back and did some digging and found this. I think we can get to a resolution and we'd be very interested in getting those lots back. End quote. So I think that it's our issue and not Meridian's, because they then sent us a letter saying that it's lost its legal non-conforming status, knowing that we had intentions and we were in the midst of contract negotiations with Meridian. And they said, you can't do that. Well, in that contract, it says that we're not aware of any zoning issues. So we can't sign that. knowing that there are zoning issues. And we're the ones footing the $50,000 a month maintenance bill that the taxpayers are paying while we're waiting on the city to decide what they want to do. So I think that it's our issue and not Meridian's, because we're the ones still paying the 50,000, the taxpayers are the ones paying the $50,000 a month. And that's why I'm ready for a resolution. I think the only way that we can guarantee that resolution, unless they come between now and March 31st and say, we agree, our interpretation was wrong, your interpretation was correct. You can proceed with signing this, saying that there are no zoning issues, and that you can sign this agreement with Meridian, which we can't do because we're aware of potential zoning issues.
Well, if there were some other justifications for the use of the building outside the zoning, if there was a federal law or other laws that trump the zoning, then it would be easy to work with Meridian to do an addendum and say that the zoning issue has been acknowledged, both parties understand what it is. However, both parties are comfortable with moving forward under a different theory of occupation and use of the building.
I just see this being a hurdle that's going to have to be crossed again down the road with Meridian proceeding. And I would like to avoid that.
Well, again, the issue is if the city's attorney, Mr. Anspacher, and Meridian's attorney can work out a resolution that they're both comfortable with, and it's adopted by both boards, then that would assume that Meridian would come to the table, sign our agreement, and we're done. And that's my understanding of what those two are working on. Is there some resolution, whether it be zoning or otherwise, that allows for Meridian's use of the building as contemplated by our agreement? And if Meridian and the city both feel comfortable in whatever they negotiate, so to speak, even though it's not Meridian's problem, but if it resolves the zoning issue, then that's easy to fix in the agreement with an addendum. I mean, my understanding is they wouldn't be talking if they didn't think there was some resolution to the situation. And I think the city's trying to work towards making Meridian comfortable that they would have a legitimate legal use of the
I
building.
just say that they're
as
talking about
contemplated.
everything except for zoning.
Except for zoning.
I think that's insane. I think it's ridiculous. If Meridian wants to engage in those conversations, I have no problem with that, as long as they're comfortable with signing the agreement with us. And it stops that $50,000 a month maintenance that we're spending, I have no problem. If they're comfortable with signing it, that's fine. And if they can come to that resolution between now and March 31st, I think that's fantastic. If not, then I think that the only thing we can do is get a judge to say, whether that be called, I'm not an attorney, a declaratory judgment.
Declaratory.
Declaratory, I don't even know how to say the word.
Lawyer talk anyway.
Right, so whatever that may be, to say, there is no zoning issue, or there is a zoning issue, whatever, let the judge decide it. If our attorneys can't do it, let the judge decide it, because right now we're spending more than $50,000 a month on all these attorneys, and I know that I went to the wrong profession.
Yeah, right, yeah. I agreed with everything you said, Mr. Beal. I just would like to go one step further and include that I don't think an addendum or any other type of agreement needs to be signed by Meridian with the city as to X, Y, and Z. I think that should come through us, period.
I mean, I would reiterate, if they.
I know,
if they
and you
work
can let
if they
Mr.
work-
Evans know
I'll
that.
let Mr. Evans know
and
that.
Mr.
and
Arsh-
Ms. Cone will let
Arsh-
him know that in the morning.
Unsparker.
Arnsparger, yeah. Do you need a motion, Mr. Chair?
I'm thinking about it. I'm just kind of wondering what they're talking about if they're not talking about zoning.
Turkey
That
hunt.
makes me think, yeah. Gracious. So it's not a zoning issue, but it's sort of related, I guess.
Right.
What do I know?
You had to been there to appreciate it.
Right? Gracious. Yeah. Yeah, I think we beat that horse to death. Well, I think it's time to entertain a motion.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what all needs to be said. That's why I'm looking for help from Mr. Kennan and Mr. Arline.
Well, let me just say, if you want. If the April 2nd deadline is the deadline. I would prefer that your motion say that we begin to draft the complaint at that time.
On April the 1st.
April
I'll
2nd.
work on April Fool's Day.
Yeah, well, that's,
I'm just saying, I don't know, I don't want, it would be time consuming and expensive to pay me to draft that. And I'd have to do it before April 1st, which would, you might not need it to the March 31st deadline. So what I'm just asking is that if March 31 comes along and there is still concern, that at that point, we're authorized to proceed.
How long will that take?
A week or maybe a week. It's a good bit of work, but it's, it would,
nothing ventured, nothing gained.
then we're directed to do it on after March 1st.
March 1st.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
the other parties don't care how long they drag it out, theoretically.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah,
So, Mr. Arlen, you're saying that you would prefer to have direction in the motion that come April 1st, if there's no resolution, then you begin drafting, which would take you approximately a week to draft and file.
Right. And I've, worked with Mr. Kennan to share drafts and back and forth. I mean, it takes a little time to do something.
Like you was plural, I apologize. Y'all.
Well put.
Thank you.
Mr. Arline, looking at my calendar, our next meeting, unless we have a special meeting, would be on the 14th of April. It could be done by then and filed by then.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion
Please.
that if the letter, the document that was prepared by Mr. Arline and Mr. Kennan for what's the name of the city attorney? And their city and Mr. Martin, if they have not signed that letter and had it approved by, I assume, maybe I need legal advice on this too. Would the city council actually have to approve that letter due to the fact that the city manager is the one that wrote the letter to us dated October 24 without authorization from the city, which is not, from the council, which is not even stated in the letter that they were aware of it?
I think the city attorney could write a letter as to what he understands it to be, but the 164 agreement, if it became part of that, would need to be executed by the city and the authority, and that probably won't happen by the March 31st. If they're going to have schedule hearings or meetings for that. So if it's just an opinion letter, the lawyer can do it, but if it's part of our 164 process, then you're going to have public hearings of both parties in order to approve those documents.
Well, and my only concern about limiting the motion to them signing our proposed letter is if there is another resolution that the city and Meridian can agree to outside of that allows and makes Meridian feel comfortable to sign our agreement, why limit it to
Can
that?
our motion be that if Meridian's not comfortable signing our agreement by April 7th, by April 8th, which is the day after the first city council meeting, then we have 6 days before our next meeting. Hopefully Mr. Arline and Mr. Kennan can work late one night to
What do you drive?
Right? Right?
A white Toyota truck?
That's right.
Mr. Keenan, help me out, in layman's terms, please, and Mr. Arline, as to what the city is wanting or willing to agree with if they can work with Meridian. What does that entail?
That is what Meridian's attorney and Mr. Anspacher are working on now.
Which is what?
I'm not part of it. They're trying to work out a
That's what
deal
I mean.
by the
We
end
know.
of the month.
We know it's not zoning.
Right. Anything but zoning, right, yeah.
Well, it may be zoning.
Could be anything.
No, it's,
The key is Meridian needs to feel comfortable that the city is not an impediment to their occupation and use of the building as contemplated by our agreement. And if they get to that point with the city, I'm assuming they sign our agreement.
if they're not comfortable signing our agreement by
Limited.
April 8th, which is the day after the city council's first meeting in April. That gives them a chance to get the city council to approve whatever as part of the chapter 164. That gives Meridian the opportunity to say, we don't care about chapter 164, we're happy, we want to sign it right now, we're gonna take it, you don't have to spend $50,000 a month anymore. That means whatever. That means Meridian's taking the building on them. So if they're not comfortable by April 8th, then we file.
And hopefully with no zoning issues on their part. On Meridian's part, I would hope that they would have enough sense, Mr. Evans would have enough sense to keep that in mind, but I'm sure he does. Great,
He's very confident.
I have no doubt, yeah.
Him and his partner are well versed in this area. And they're not gonna let Meridian sign something that's gonna
Right.
impede their future use of the property.
Would you state your motion again, Mr. Bill?
I make a motion that if Meridian is not comfortable in signing our agreement, Lakeshore Hospital Authority and Meridian's agreement by April 8th, that we move forward with filing declaratory judgment, asking for declaratory judgment from the Third Circuit by April 14th.
And this is regarding the zoning issue. Correct.
Or
Regarding
whatever
our
that
agreement.
entails.
Yeah.
You keep
Yeah,
throwing
but
that zoning word out there.
Declaratory.
Declaratory.
Declaratory judgment, I can't speak, I might be having a stroke.
That
It could be on anything, I don't care what the judge declares. As long as he declares the zoning issue one way or the other, he can declare anything else he wants to declare, he can declare it a national holiday.
I'll second
She
it.
can declare it a national holiday, as long as they declare the zoning issue, because that's all we care about, and I think that's ultimately all, I shouldn't say it that way. But for the agreement purposes, that's what Meridian should be concerned about, in my personal opinion. So by April 8th, the day after the city council's first meeting, if they're not comfortable with it, then we file in the Third Circuit for a judgment by the judge to declare whatever.
I'll second.
Could you repeat the motion?
Wait to take
20
that.
minutes, what's the
Yeah.
motion?
If Meridian is not
I
comfortable,
moved that, yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, I was trying to restate
Move
it.
that. Go ahead,
Stu, come on.
let's hear it.
I was trying to say it, Stu, if
Say
I, stop, I'm not gonna say it.
Don't say it, so we won't know the motion, that's
Stu.
fine.
Everybody else heard the motion.
Everybody.
I second the
understand
motion,
the
Mr.
motion.
Chair.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. And it's my understanding, how about this, I'll restate it, that Meridian is comfortable signing their agreement with us to move forward with that. By April 8th, or we direct our attorneys to move forward with a declaratory judgment. Ms. Chancey,
Yes,
fun, right? Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Bullard? Mr. Beal?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All right. Moving on, discussion of possible action, Mr. Ken, approval of the construction and operation agreement with Palms.
You have attached in your packets the last draft that we have negotiated with Tom. They call it professional services. That's the title of the document. And it has been vetted by myself, administration, and financial part by Mr. Powell. And we would answer any questions you may have about it. We find it in appropriate order at this time. Is that correct, Mr. Powell?
It is, absolutely.
Before we do all that, I want to open that one up to public comment. Mr. Loker?
No.
Ms. Lynn?
As you guys well know, I've said many times, this is a illegitimate and comprised board. However, the governor's office and appointments office does the same thing because there's too many special districts appointees. But I am opposed to giving any money, any use of the building to Palms Medical. The Department of Health can service the needs, and you guys have the authority, even though I think you're the wrong board. You have the authority to hire a doctor, a nurse, a receptionist, and put it in Fort White. And, you know, you guys kicked Erica Mayo to the curb. And I know Brandon's foot's tired because he's been kicking the can for a couple of years. Tonight was like an archaeological dig for our chairman. Went on and on and on. But if I was gonna run for public office in a couple of years, I wouldn't want it on my record that I gave taxpayer money to a not-for-profit that has an operation 2 miles away. And maybe you guys should consider giving money, by getting a doctor, a nurse, and putting it in Fort White, where it is a healthcare desert. And you need to think heavily of what this will cost in the long run. You know, $40,000 for you guys to pay a supervisor for the building. And all these other things, and you need to look at it and say no to Palms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments on the agreement with Palms Medical Group, public comments? Did you just,
Kennedy said he had something to say, but I'd like to hear what he has to say.
well, hey, when we get there. It's coming, I'm just double checking.
Well, I'm just beginning to say something in connection with what he has to say.
Fair enough. All right, we exhausted public comments. So we'll move on to comments from the board. Yeah. Hold on a second.
There,
Yeah.
so. Some of my previous concerns have been erased with this latest and greatest version. Some of the small things about insurance and whatever to get another, also another insurance professional. But it's written in here that both will have the liability insurance. One of the bigger things, I believe in here also that we kind of find what page it is. But I believe Holmes actually changed it themselves for the amount of,
Repairs.
yeah,
The $5,000.
to $5,000. And one of the bigger things that I hope everybody has seen by reading through this is that Columbia County resident can go to any Palms facility So residents of Fort White could go to High Springs, they could go to Trenton, they could go to Bell, they could go to
Branford.
Branford. Any number of the facilities. And not only would they, if they qualify for this, that would be paid for, but that also. Help me
Okay.
word this, Mr. Powell.
So for the first 2 years are your greatest exposure to subsidy. So during those first 2 years, those patient fees, wherever they are, would be counted as revenue for your facility in computing the required subsidy. So in other words, our business plan was to have all of the patients you pay for go to this clinic to make it profitable. But your exposure is a subsidy. So for the first 2 years, it would be the same calculation as if all of those patients were coming to this clinic.
That opens up access to all Columbia County residents.
And I've read that. What page is that on, Mr. Powell? I forget. I'm sitting here trying to find it and I can't find it again, but I know.
I think it's on exhibit C.
I think
Exhibit C,
it's on
that's what I'm on,
the addendum.
On the page. Good, I'm glad I'm not the only one. Say that again?
Exhibit C, number 1. the back.
Exhibit C, number 1. No, I was talking about anybody in Columbia County
That's it.
going to another,
That
Palms
last-
facility in, High Springs or wherever. I know that was in
Yes,
here.
sir.
That last
It's the
sentence.
last sentence.
Last sentence of number
Yeah.
1. Let's see where it is.
Where
Okay.
that comma is. From there.
Lakeshore Hospital Authority payments for patient services and all.
Thank you.
locations.
Thank you. I'm a slow reader. Okay, I see that. There it is, right there. Yes, I appreciate that being inserted in there also. But the only, Mr. Bill, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, well, I just only have one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And Ms. Lindley made me think about this, and I don't know how this would work. It might be a Dale question. I'm not real sure. Let's say natural disaster comes and takes the roof off. It's gonna be more than $5,000. We don't intend on, well, actually back up. We don't intend on having a full-time maintenance person on our staff to do this, because we would only be responsible for things under $5,000, which most major repairs should not come up in these first 5 years if it's gonna be a renovated building. But if something, let's say this air conditioner goes out, does Palms replace it and bill us? Does Palms pick up the phone and say, hey, Dell, hey, Sonia, come replace this area? How does that, I'm just curious, I'm just curious how this.
If repair is needed and Palms believes that it exceeds their limit under the contract, they would initiate a claim with us and asked us to consider paying for whatever that may be. We have to remember this is a public building. This building will be owned by the citizens of Columbia County. It will be insured. The authority will insure it to the extent it all has ownership. And then, of course, Palms will have their own insurance for their own operational liability.
Maybe I shouldn't have said a natural disaster. There's a roof leak, whatever it may be. I'm assuming if that's the case and it's a $200 patch job, Palms is gonna initiate it and then, hey, well, it's actually this much damage, and then we initiate that claim. Is that-
Any public building, and this was
Yeah,
no
this sounds
different than when
tricky.
you had CHS operating the hospital. We requested that they provide us periodically with a list of the maintenance performed. Just because it's the public's building and you want to be able to know what may have been done with the public building.
Yeah, and it's we would anticipate having extended warranties on all the AC units, just like you do at your home. And which, usually go to well beyond the first term of the lease.
That was, thank you.
I want to hear from Ms. Johnson, what she thinking.
I-
She's a subject matter expert in healthcare on the board, so I'm serious. I want to hear what you have to say.
We have not been able to provide any type of health care in this area. I think this is a wonderful agreement because even the services that Palms has, but not at this facility, the people from Columbia County that are our patients can go to any Palms facility and receive the services there that are available. That's extraordinary. The fact that they are going to accept our patients that are registered here with us, that we will again be able to provide some type of medical care for them. That's what we're about. We are unable to provide a hospital for them at the moment because the whole medical thing has changed. There are specialty hospitals being built. Well, we're not set up to build a specialty hospital. Nobody wants a big hospital unless it's a private entity. It just doesn't work anymore. All it does is suck taxpayers' money. I think this whole thing with Palms is exceptional. The fact that they accept all kinds of insurance, am I correct? Tell me where you can go that it doesn't matter what your medical insurance is, that they will let you walk in the door. Ain't true of most places anymore. I mean, there are even hospitals that will deny to accept your medical insurance. Palms is willing to do it. So people that have medical insurance that is not the norm, they can be treated there. Where they can't be treated anyplace else and have their insurance pay for anything. I think this is an excellent move.
Mr. Chair, if I can piggyback off of.
Please.
I should have said this earlier. I actually ran into somebody within an hour before our meeting today at the pharmacy who's run personally and they have lost their health insurance. And they, with the Palms, they did not qualify for the sliding scale, but they were still seen there and raved about it. And of course, that was unprompted because they had no idea I was coming to this meeting. This was being discussed tonight. I didn't even mention it, but they literally raved about the experience they had and thought that it was a fair, they paid a fair price even without the sliding scale and without insurance. So, and that's worth mentioning also.
Mr. Kennedy, you have a comment?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'll be honest, I was leaning like this after a couple meetings ago, but here recently I'm sitting straight up in my chair and I like the improvements that have been made. Mr. Kennan, Mr. Powell, thank you very much. Palms, thank you very much. I will agree with you, Ms. Chansey, my own medical provider, you know, that's when I asked him that somebody's new moved into town and they're looking for a doctor, you know, first thing they said, well, who's their insurance with? And when I
Right.
tell them, they go, no, we don't accept that. But so that's a problem. But I think it's great. It's good. I do have an accounting question for Mr. Powell and looking at your projected clinic project budget.
Okay.
Didn't mean to catch you off guard on that, but on your very first outlay, is this when it says preparation of bid ready documents, parentheses fixed, close parentheses, $52,000, is that negotiable or is that the flat rate or
Okay,
what?
so it is an
Approximate?
no, it is a fee that was in the Palms proposal, because we're
Okay.
basically hiring Palms to do a turnkey build out. So
That's
that's the
not
fix.
included in the $40,000, that's extra?
No, it's to
Okay.
hire the architect, get the plans, get the permits, and have
Okay.
it ready to bid.
Okay.
Can
On,
I comment on that?
Okay.
Those were best guess and.
guesstimates,
Yes, sir.
so if
Those
we
are
can,
not firm numbers.
okay, so it
Yeah,
may
so
be
any of
hopefully
the-
less.
Right, any of the cost for construction and
Yes,
all
ma'am.
that was just the estimates at that time.
Eyeballing,
Yes, sir.
great. So we're gonna try to
Good
keep
to
a
go.
low ball. Good. Okay, and then
We
the
don't
other
know.
comment I have is a Mr. Kennan issue. I guess because I'm such a nerd on a lot of things, and I don't need a second on that, but, in exhibit B, and Mr. Williams, you can answer this too, but, now that we're getting to where we're gonna have to no longer have, lawn care services for the hospital and for the women's two-story building, and this building here, is there anything that we can negotiate there, possibly with maybe Palms, taking over the lawn maintenance, because I don't believe there's much lawn maintenance there. That will be an extra contract that we won't have to approve annually on lawn maintenance. Unless the city's willing to do it.
Okay, I'm thinking that the Palms facility, Palms would be responsible for the
Lawn
grounds
maintenance?
of that property, yes.
Okay, because it's not stated anywhere.
And it says operating expenses.
I noticed electricity, sewer, water, gas, and everything else, but it didn't say lawn maintenance. Clean, they've got to do the cleaning.
Am I correct, Anita?
I'm not gonna argue about.
I'll give you a low ball figure. I'm retired. Teasing you.
Let Meridian do it for us.
11.
We'll get an agreement.
In your maintenance.
And that's something else I may add too, but both those entities, from what I understand, have an excellent working relationship, that being Palms and Meridian, which I am glad to see. And Ms. Chansey, on your point, yes, it'd be nice to have a medical provider down here, and the college would benefit from it too, with their nursing
Yeah.
program. And maybe Palms can receive the medical interns possibly. That's
Okay,
between the college and Palms,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
depends on,
I just
How
threw it out,
intense
yeah,
they
kind of
wanna
like the
go.
lawn service.
Let the city negotiate.
That's my only comments, Mr. Chair.
most of them have to train with them.
Exactly, but All right. I guess we gotta wait for some sort of a motion then.
I make a motion that we approve the construction and operation agreement with Palms County.
Under SB 50, I have the opportunity to speak again.
Go for it.
What happened to the Department of Health? That is a less costly option. And Mr. Powell said, our plan, it should have been her plan.
Okay.
Did-
Very nice.
You know, what happened to the Department of Health?
It's public comment. I
Yep.
said yes.
Listening to the comments.
Did you guys even consider the financial costs to undertake this project? Can Mr. Powell say how much it's going to cost the authority? I'm asking you for an answer.
I'm listening to public comment.
You guys just aren't gonna say anything.
No, listen. If it makes you feel better, it's stated right there.
When?
We've already stated how much it's gonna cost.
I'd like to hear it again for the record. And Mr. Powell state how much it's going to cost to have Tom's Medical and the millions of dollars that will be expended. I just wouldn't want that on my plate if I approved it.
No problem. We're,
I'm doing SB 50. I have some comments. Sorry.
is he right with SB 50?
No,
We have
no,
our
we
internal
have our own
meeting
rules,
policies.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so we have our
Yeah,
own rules.
thank you
Y'all
very
Dude.
much.
Excluding me?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm not asking you, Mr. Kennedy.
let me,
I'm
hey,
talking to my chairman.
I'm
how
not
about
asking you.
this? Stu,
Take us.
how about this? We're done. Thank you.
Well, that's not
Thank you,
fair.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I drive up from almost High Springs. to-
And we're done, and we're done.
Thank you very much. It
I gave her the opportunity because she's always been polite. That was not polite.
was
We're done.
polite.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a motion? I
Yes,
can't remember.
I
Yes.
made a motion, no one
Yes.
seconded it.
We almost did.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Motion in a second to approve the construction and operation agreement with Palms Medical Group. Is that what you said?
The title is professional services, is that? On the document, I just want to make sure that.
Okay,
No, it's not. You can, it's right there.
To approve the professional service agreement.
It just worded different.
okay.
Okay, so motion
Same
is.
I
document.
stand corrected on the motion,
Okay.
okay?
I'll amend my second to include the professional services that Ms. Chauncey put in her motion.
Then we'll do a roll call.
Mr.
Yes,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Quick discussion.
Yes, sir.
Since we have a motion.
Yep.
When, if this passes, how long will this take to get going?
Okay, so the projections are, it will be a year to get open. I'm kind of looking at Anita.
Spoken to regarding this, that it was at least a year project.
Yeah, so
Well,
it'll
that's
be in that,
based on permitting and
yeah, so it might be a little more, but
18 months.
Thank you, Dale.
yeah, remember,
Sorry, Anita.
remember it's in the city. so.
To go spending money.
they're gonna put in.
Oh. No, go for it. So motion and a second's been heard. I'll do a roll call vote, Ms. Kelsey.
okay, may I make an,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
the only thing I would like to add
Yes,
before
ma'am.
we vote is we're a different department than the health department. We're a different entity. Why would anybody try to bring them together? Okay, yes, I'm voting yes.
Okay, just checking. Mr. Kennedy?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mr. Bill?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we made it. Staff report is included in your booklet. Any final board member comments? We'll go to Ms. Chancey.
No, thank you.
Mr. Kennedy? Mr. Bolden? Mr. Beal?
I'll be very brief. I think my reasoning, I don't think we ignored the health department, but I
Yeah.
think this serves Columbia County as a whole in a much wider variety. And we also, we had an RFP that was put out, and we had one response to that RFP. So I think we did the right thing by moving forward with that.
Absolutely. Well put. All right, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.